Welcome back to the At Home with Roby show. I'm Ashley Davis along with Trent and Haston with the Roby Family of Companies. Visit us today at andrewroby.com. That's Andrew, R-O-B-Y.com. Or you can always find us on the WBT.com homepage. Trent, before the break, we had a great discussion about the history of the Andrew Roby Company and Andrew Robichek coming over, starting the company. Really a two-man shop with you and your with he and your grandfather, Glenn Haston. Let's talk now. Let's fast forward a little bit. The Haston family took over the company, bought the company in the mid-'70s, and then in the early 2000s, it became a three-generation shop, really, with you and your brother Travis, your father Ron, and your grandfather Glenn. Let's talk about what you guys have become and what that vision was in working cross-generational to really take the company to where it is today in 2015.
Yeah, it's pretty funny you said Andrew Roby and me jokingly because my granddad, boy, he was full of fire. I mean, he was fire and brimstone. Very, very dynamic fellow. A great man, great Christian man, and it was funny though, man. My dad and those guys while I was coming up, I've calmed down a lot, but they used to always say I was Little Glenn.
Oh, really?
So a lot of the laborers called me Little Glenn, so it's kind of funny you say that. But growing up, I mean, I was an office monkey as much as I could be an office monkey. Dad kept me and Travis busy in sports and stuff. But growing up, you know, I've told this story. I'll tell it right now on the radio. When I turned 14, I think this is cool. I want to write a book on this one thing. That when I turned 14, my dad came to me. He said, you now can work in our family business. He said, you can work when you don't have school or extracurricular activities in school. So you can't work in afternoons during the week, but you can work during holidays, summer vacation, Christmas vacation, and if you want to earn extra money, I'll find you something to do on Saturday if you don't have any sports or anything. So he said, you got $1,000 in your savings account I opened for you. He said, and you work, and however much money you have saved by the time you turn 16, I'll buy you a car for that amount of money. But you can't spend your money till you're 21. So he said, if you only have $1,000, you don't save anything, I'm going to buy you a $1,000 car, and you keep the $1,000. He says, if you have $5,000, I'll buy you a $5,000 car, and you keep the $5,000. It'd be a good primer for your life. And So when I turned 16, I had $7,500, and I was making minimum wage. Travis was too, $4.25. And then all my buddies started working when they were 16 because they could then for a construction company. And we all made $4.25. I hope my dad was billing us out at like $25 an hour. But that's a cool story, and it's a good way to teach somebody, and it's a good way to make a workaholic. Is what I think.
So what was the before you move on? What was the car you got for
$7,500? Two-door Mitsubishi Montero. I don't know if you remember these. They also had some Raiders.
I had
you had
one.
a two-door Mitsubishi Montero. Did it have
the globe thing?
Yeah, it was the tachometer.
Tachometer.
It was because you were going to flip that joker.
They definitely flipped, man.
I never flipped the Mitsubishi Montero. It was 4 in the floor, I think.
Yep.
Man, I love that car. I had two kicker 12s in the back. I was every idiot.
Kicking it old school.
You know, I go down the road now. I'm glad the base days are gone. I can't believe if I was trying to be a grown young businessman riding down the road back in the 90s, I would have been devastated.
Yeah.
All these kids with the bass in their car, but you know, we were all building speaker boxes. We'd go buy rolls of that gray carpet and hang out at the speaker store and get you some silicone. You got to seal those jokers up tight, sink them screws good.
It's funny how you get older. I was not to get off topic, but I was with my wife the other night. We're driving. We had the kids in the back seat, and this kid in front of us just took off at the red light and spun out and kind of went sideways going down the street. And my wife she was like, God, that kid is crazy. And my first thought was, man, I used to do that when I was his age. Now I think he's crazy.
Yeah, put your hand out in the Mitsubishi Montero, crack your window, and tap the roof. Look at somebody. I mean, come on, really?
Last thing you want to race in is a Mitsubishi Montero.
Yeah, because there might be a curve ahead. But
exactly.
But no,
all right, let's get back on topic.
I love my Mitsubishi Montero.
So you get the car. You worked $7,500, which is a lot of money. That says a lot about you and your work ethic.
Well,
actually,
it says about my dad. Is what it says. I just wanted to work and save money at that point, and the primer was primed, and I think it's just a life lesson. And then and it worked, you
Yeah.
know. And after that, I was addicted to working and saving money and trying to get extra hours. I remember from 14 to 16 that I worked with Fred and Leroy. Y'all have heard me talk a little bit about Leroy. He was, I think, the fourth employee in 1950-51. My granddad used to say that Leroy was the mason's helper. He was 15 years old, and my granddad wasn't fond of the mason. He was lazy. They were digging out a big Myers Park oak tree stump by hand in 1951, 50-51, and he liked Leroy, and he rode up and said, well, whoever the mason's name was, you get out of here, Leroy, you get in my truck. And they were partners ever since. I mean, Leroy just officially retired last year.
Wow.
And we just had a cornhole cookout, and Leroy got to come. I got to see Leroy about 3 weeks ago. And he's just special. That's who my dad wanted me and my brother before we could drive to work with.
Yeah.
So we were with Fred. Fred was this old drummer from Chicago with an afro, and every other word was a curse word, and he had a toothpick in his mouth, wore these tight, skinny jeans, and laced his boots up to his kneecaps. And Fred Brewer, he was so awesome and taught me so much about life. And then Leroy. And I sat in the middle of these guys in the dump truck.
Yeah.
And my dad would drop me off at the restaurant every morning at 6, and I'd work with them. And they took care of me. If I had an upset stomach, they'd stop what they were doing. They'd take me to McDonald's or whatever, take me to the doctor. But they would drop me back off at the job site because my dad would work to about 6 or 7 at night during the summer.
Yeah.
And they'd drop me back off at the job site, and I'd do stuff around the job, get my
Right.
overtime, get my $6.50
Exactly.
tax,
Jump it up.
pre-tax, time and a half. And then my dad would come pick me up on the way home,
Right.
come walk through the house. Hey, are you in here, boy? So that's how me and my brother learned to work. My brother was the same exact way.
Yeah. And you got those are the life lessons you learn. And folks, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to the At Home with Roby show. We're talking to Trent Haston, who's the CEO of the company now, president and CEO. We're talking about the history of what Andrew Roby is all about. If you want to know what they can do for you in your home, go to andrewroby.com. That's andrewroby.com. So Trent, you did that kind of work, you and Travis both, working through high school, saving that money. Then you both get out of college, and that's when you guys really start to get ingrained in not just working in the company, but building the company.
Yeah, my dad used to always say, he came up school hard knocks, and he used to always say that he didn't want us to come back into the company because he wanted us to better ourselves, in his mind. But he used to always say if we did come back into the company, no matter where we graduated from college-wise or whatever degree we had to go back into the field for 5 years and earn our keep and work on the jobs and earn our keep and our respect with the guys. And so my brother's 4 years older. He got out. He was running jobs. My brother, I say this all the time, he holds all of our GC licenses amongst other people we have, but he holds our main ones, and he's very talented. He's the best builder to my dad I've met. And he was working in the field, and I was a junior at Carolina, economics major. I called Dad. I said, Dad, I learned opportunity cost, was ready to start selling. It's wasting time digging. I need to sell and estimate. And I called Dad and said, I'm going to come back into the business. And he said, no, you're not. And I said, yes, I am. And he said, boy, this business can't feed another Haston. And he meant it. And that's how he thought about running our business. And I said, I'm going to prove to you, and this is the impetus of where I think we're going to go in the next segment. I was an economics major. I studied widgets, right? I said, it doesn't matter what widget you're making. You can grow a business that feeds multiple families and generations of families, and I want to do that. And I didn't say I was going to prove that to my dad, or I was set out to prove him wrong that it could feed another Haston. But I just loved our business. I said, you grew me up in a dump truck. If you'd have grown me up in a country club, I might go be a doctor or a lawyer or a banker. And I got to be careful. I'll play a little bit of golf. Got to be careful with my kids on that deal, because there's a lot of virtues. But so that's how it started. And I was a salesman, so I started selling him that I was going to come into the business. I did, and started estimating projects the summer of my junior year in college.
Yeah. Hold that thought. We're going to take a break.
And that was 2000. We just went another 20 years.
20 years in, 5 minutes?
Man.
I like that.
Gone 50 and 10. Nah.
Back to the future. All right, hold that thought. When we come back, we're going to talk about how you've grown the business and what you and Travis have done to really transform that business as you two have gotten involved over the last 10 or 12 years. You're listening to the At Home with Roby show. Visit us today at andrewroby.com. That's andrewroby.com. We'll be right back.